Okay, hello and welcome to the Play Therapy Path. This is actually our first episode of our podcast, so welcome everyone who's going to be listening in. Um, what we're going to be discussing today is basically everything that we have come to learn about the benefits of child-centered play therapy and how they're useful in schools. Um, Beginning with who we are, beginning with myself, my name is Michael Hernandez. A little background information about me. I am currently pursuing my master's degree at CSU Sacramento for school counseling. And I also got my bachelor's degree for applied behavioral analysis and psychology at the University of the Pacific. And with me, I am joined by my three other hosts who I will let them introduce themselves right now.
Awesome. Thank you, Mikey, for that quick introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Deja Moldrew. Pronouns are she, her, hers. And I'm also pursuing my master's degree at California State University, Sacramento, with school counseling as my focus. I also attended Sacramento State for undergrad, and I received my bachelor's degree in psychology with a minor in counseling and child development. I'm so happy to be here today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sandy Lowe. Just like Deja and Mikey, I'm also pursuing a career in school counseling at Sac State. For my undergrad, I went to Sac State and I got my bachelor's degree in sociology with a minor in counseling.
Awesome. And hi, everyone. My name is Nancy. Pronouns are also she, her, hers. I am also pursuing to be a school counselor like my fellow co-host here at Sacramento State University. I got my undergrad degree at UC Davis in psychology, and I also double minored in education and communications.
All right. So today for our podcast, we are going to be discussing what child-centered play therapy is and what it entails. We will also be discussing the importance of why parents and caregivers, educators, administrators should be aware and know about child-centered play therapy. And then lastly, we will connect what we have learned from our sessions to what child-centered play therapy is.
All right, to start us off, I kind of want to talk about what child-centered play therapy is. So based on what we've been studying in our classroom materials, child-centered play therapy is defined as a dynamic interpersonal relationship between a child or a person of any age, but for our focus, we're focusing on children in elementary schools, and a therapist trained in play therapy procedures who provide selected play materials and facilitates the development of a safe relationship for the child to fully express and explore self through play, the child's natural medium of communication for optimal growth and development. So kind of like into this definition, it's basically that play is the child's symbolic language to self-express themselves. Hence, like play is their language. That's really how they know how to express and communicate with others. And this can also reveal what the child has experienced, reactions to what was experienced, feelings about what was experienced, and what the child wishes, wants, or needs. And lastly, the child's perception of self. Also, like I mentioned earlier, the toys are their words, play is their language. And also, play can be spontaneous and not something children are taught. So essentially, this is something in the child's imagination. It's how they see it. It's not just something someone teaches them how to do it. And then it's also a way that they can learn themselves in the real world. And then play is also used as therapy. So that way it's not confused using just play in therapy. Because using it as therapy makes connection the reinforcer. Learning targets are embedded within play. So it's not just, playing, but they're also learning milestones, or maybe they'd be working on something specific within themselves. And then also the therapy structure is more fluid and flexible. It's not a set structure that the kid has to follow throughout the session. And the essential element in this relationship, or is the relationship, and the success or failure of therapy rests on the development and maintenance of the therapeutic relationship between the child and the therapist.
Awesome, Nancy. Thank you for giving that brief definition of what play therapy is, what is child-centered play therapy. So now we're probably wondering why is it so important for our parents, educators, administrators to know about what this process is. Thinking back to when we were kids, we all experience big feelings. So thinking about like how we process moving to a new school or starting at a new school, moving home, thinking about any big events that happen in our lives, those are associated with big feelings. And sometimes kids may not know how to put those feelings into words, but being that play is such a thing that we don't have to think about. We learn it naturally as we grow. Play is an appropriate way for children, especially with our age, elementary school, to process those feelings. So with child-centered play therapy, children are able to expand their self-expression. So learning how to express themselves through different play, like during like nurturing play, how they cook food or how they care for others or how they interact with animals, or even showing up with different themes like aggression um, or any like reality play, things that we normally do, but they can't process through words. And so through child-centered play therapy, children are able to transfer those ideas into real life. And so basically when they're in session, the counselor is basically a facilitator. And so the child is in control of the play. And child-centered play therapy is a physical activity for children that lets them discharge any energy, prepare for life duties, achieve different goals, and relieve frustrations. And so through this, they are able to develop skills and allow them to express their individuality and personalities. And so with that, with all of us being here as potential or future school counselors, we've had experience with hosting or facilitating um, play sessions with children this semester. So why are we all here pursuing school counseling? What led us here?
So my story, why I'm pursuing school counseling is just because I feel that out of all the careers that I've worked with, particularly I've been more drawn to uh, working in the educational field. I've had experience working in high schools. I've worked in a middle school before. I've done some volunteer work, and I always just find myself really enjoying not just being there for students in that moment, but also helping them figure out their futures. Um, like for example, I was a drumline instructor for 7 years. Um, I was not focused just merely on the musical aspect. I was focused on where do my students want to go for college, what is their career path, and all that stuff. And so, actually, my students that I taught led me here. So, I was originally supposed to be a music major, but I felt that my path was more towards guidance and counseling and all that stuff. So, I believe that's what led me here. What led you all here?
For me, I had a big impact from my high school counselor that I had. She just made a big impact on me and made me feel comfortable, made me feel safe throughout my 4 years of high school. And being that I attended a high school that didn't really have a lot of teachers or administrators that looked like me, had my counselor be somewhat of a representation of who I am was very, very empowering. And so I took that as like my own like motivation to become a counselor to first off help like scholars, students with their academic career, personal development, but also to be like a representation for other children of color, so that they can feel like somewhat connected and not alone as they navigate their lives and their careers.
Yeah, my experience was very mixed leading up to wanting to be a school counselor. Because for like up until like maybe like the year before I applied for this program, I was kind of set on like being like just like a therapist. Like I wanted to go in as like a psychology major for like my master's program. But I would work with like kids like in like summer school programs, and then I was also like an office assistant to like school counselors, and like just seeing like being in that experience with like children. Because for me, when I was in like elementary, middle school, I didn't have a school counselor. At least I probably did, and I just didn't know. But it was just so nice like being there for those kids, like they were like students that were not there all year round, so they didn't get the full like school experience. And just helping them like just by doing work or just being there when they need to like talk to someone, or if they have questions about stuff like that they're interested in, like just being able to be there for someone as like a support, just like guide someone in like a direction they want to go to. It kind of like in a way like inspired me. Like I wanted to work more with kids and just like, whatever their goal is in life or after high school, whatever it is, I just want to be that person that can support them and help guide them through that path.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing. I feel like we all have very similar experiences and like getting inspired to enter this field. Much like you all, I enjoy working with kids, and specifically I came in to work with high school students. But I think through this course of child center play therapy, um, I'm very inspired, and I feel like this is something that I can enjoy doing. So yeah, so prior to starting school in the program, I worked with kindergartners, and I enjoy playing with them so much. And I feel like that's when it really like hit me that like I kind of want to go into counseling because I enjoy working with kids. I just didn't know that I wanted to work with kids because I always thought that I wanted to work with high school students. So now I'm a little bit conflicted, but I am going to figure it out.
Yeah, I can second you, Sandy. I initially came in wanting to just go to high school, so I'm like, there's no way, like, how is like school counseling gonna work in elementary school? But now that I work with kindergartners, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can like play with them. They can express how they feel through play. So definitely it was an eye opener for me. I'm also conflicted as well as to what area I want to work with. But I think just helping children, no matter what age, is what I am passionate about.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
In addition to that, I feel very similar too. I came in kind of just really wanting to work specifically with high schoolers, just because that's where I worked about 99% of the time when I was within the education system. But also kind of looking at how the situation is now in the educational system. We're at a very demanding time, so with the teacher shortage and not enough substitute teachers, to where it's made me really reconsider through the experiences from this program, just that yes, I do have a target audience, but we may be needed elsewhere. So as much as we would like to work exactly where we want, but sometimes it might just be to where we have to work where we're needed the most. So um, I think really learning these skills really can be used almost universally, depending on which age group. Like we can modify it, but I feel that if I were to be a school counselor in like an elementary school program, I believe that this program is really shaping me up to where I can feel confident in assisting there, you know? Again, just troubling times. You never know where we're going to be called and where we're needed. So, um, yeah, the program really does benefit. And I do see that uh, child center play therapy being a very useful tool in our toolkits.
Yeah, so I know we mentioned the class, but what were y'all's first impression of the class, or what did you expect from the class before we actually took the class?
Yeah, I can start us off. When I before I even walked into the class, when I was enrolling in the class, I was like, how is this gonna work? Like, how can you really use play as therapy? Like, I was having trouble like connecting the two. But even though I was having that like conflicting thought, I was really, really excited as to like what I can expect. So I'm like, play is fun. And so I was just like, intrigued as to like what it really was at the beginning.
For me, I was honestly very scared. Um, before we got or before we even started working, just reading the syllabus and just seeing how involved we're going to be. I have almost little to no experience working with little kids, particularly elementary and younger. even to the point to where like I was terrified of like even like holding a newborn child. That's how kind of unfamiliar I am with working with younger kids. So um yeah, the more that we really go about this class, it does feel a little bit better. There's still a lot of learning curves, but yeah, before this whole class started, I was honestly scared, but the more I'm paying attention, the more I fall in love with it.
I completely agree. I honestly am I love kids, and so I wasn't scared. I have talked to people who have taken the class prior, and they were saying it was so intense. They were saying it was a lot, like it was a hard class. Um, I honestly didn't think that it was that hard. I think it was just challenging in learning a new language in a sense where you have to return responsibility, limit set, and return feelings with someone who is not able to effectively or put into words how they're feeling. And so I thought that was a challenging part, but other than that, was I found it very um I found it to be easy, and I thought that the people who I were talking to was making it seem more difficult than I thought it was. So yeah, I really enjoy it.
I can agree with pretty much all you guys. I know before starting the class, I was a little nervous just seeing kind of like how the class was gonna play out when looking at the syllabus and everything. But I was also kind of excited just because even though I didn't have a counselor as like an elementary, when I was in the elementary school, I was told that like counselors at that point, like, do like social and emotional like building and like stuff like that. And part of me always thought like, how do you even do that as a counselor in elementary school? Like I always wondered like, what do they do? And like this, I was excited for this class because I would get to learn that, and understand how it really works out counseling children. And yeah, it's like I agree, it's like a second language, but it's really enjoyable. Like it's not as stressful as I felt like it was going to be, just because it just seemed like something completely different. So I find it really enjoyable and rewarding to do this, just playing with kids.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, just to add, I feel like it was fun for me, like when we were practicing in class, just to like put myself back in my shoes as a child and like acting like a kid. It was like it was fun. But I also thought it was like empowering to realize like we have to take a step back and see like these kids don't really know like as much as we know as adults. So like having to realize, okay, I don't know how to express myself through like my words, but I can express myself through play. So just allow myself to realize that was a learning moment I had in the class.
I really like that you mentioned that too, because as I stated, I taught music before, and I always love this phrase where words fail, music speaks. So I really use that same type of idea when we're doing our play therapy sessions or when we're learning about it. And it does make a lot more sense to me when I look at it through that lens. Just like how you're saying, children don't necessarily understand what they're going through or what they're experiencing, but they're able to describe that through the use of toys, through the use of play, through the use of games and all that stuff. There's so much that we can learn through children. And just in the few weeks that we've been doing this, it really is eye opening, from just watching videos to actually practicing this. Um, just the creativity and the self expression that comes through play. It's something really to take notice. And it's something that I would actually encourage teachers to really keep an eye on. For example, when teachers allow their children to do playtime or do recess, really just not, yes, having that time to like sit back and relax and breathe for a moment, but also examine what their children are going through and experiencing while they're on the playground or when they're in the play area. Um, there's just so much that I didn't realize that we could have been missing all these years.
I agree. Um, Something that we didn't get a chance to mention is about like the use of toys and how toys are selected and not collected. And I think the toys that the children play with, um, and what they do with the toy has a really big, it tells a story in terms of what they're going through or what they've experienced. And so definitely important to be aware of what they're playing with and what they're making that item to be in their own world.
I definitely agree on that. I never thought about how, and these sorts of things, like you have to be really like mindful of what you're selecting for like play therapy sessions because it's just not any random toy you have or any random toy you find. It's like very specific toys and like materials that like make the experience like more effective or just better overall for like the children. And it was definitely something that was eye-opening because I would have never thought about that or thought of that in general before like learning about it in this course.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, so um the four different types of toys um they are that are selected are usually nurturing toys, toys, real life toys. So this could be like food, and then we have anger releasing toys, as well as creativity toys. And so none of these toys are um are exclusive to one thing. And so I think that's what's very mind-boggling about it, is because that they can use those toys to depict so many different meanings.
Yeah, so to add on to what Sandy was saying, was the specific toys that are used, um, there are generally no target audiences, nor are there any instructions for children to use these toys. Um, for example, we can start with one of the more popular toys that's come up recently, the Pop It fidget toys. Those can be used as like an aggressive play form. Um, there are generally no instructions. Even when you're looking at the package, you'll see a child just poking the bubbles back and forth. But if you hand it to a child without the package, they just immediately almost know what to do, or they can figure out what it's going to be doing. Um, when we talk about things such as creativity, one great example that I like to use is like building blocks. um, they come in all different shapes, different sizes, and different colors. And a child can use them however they'd like, whether they want to create a design on the floor or stack them, eventually maybe knock them down, put them together, take them apart. Again, these toys that we are using necessarily don't have any instructions. And if there are any instructions on how to use a toy, it may take away from a child's experience of learning and self-expression. From what we've learned, we don't want to guide children in how to play. We just want them to select what they want and then just go from there. That's how we learn. Um, when speaking to our professor, we would always hear something like, never tell a child exactly what to do, because then they're doing what they're being told, which takes away from what we're trying to focus on. So um yeah, again, the toys that we do like to use, there's four categories. There is reality, aggressive, nurturing, and creative toys that we typically use.
All right, so kind of with like what Mikey was saying, how do we feel that this sort of stuff played out in our like three like experiences we had in like our play sessions and like our micropractum experiences?
I can go first. Um, so it's kind of funny because you the term or what we were saying earlier about how play is the children's like or the child's words. And so in my first play session, I struggled a lot because um I had a 2.5-year-old. And so this child did not talk. And when they did talk, it was very limited. It was like help. And so I struggled because I didn't know how to return responsibility or what to say exactly. And so um that was the first session. The second session with the same child, it went a lot better in terms that I was ready to reflect feeling, reflect call intent. And when the child did speak, I was still able to do all of the things that I needed to do to make sure the child was welcome. But I struggled so much at the micro practicum because the child that I had was 6 years old, and that child um was able to communicate using words and phrases. And so I was completely blank in terms of like what to say because I didn't know if I didn't know how to answer this child's question, um, or how to avoid the question without answering it. And so yeah, it's kind of weird because I think I'm prepared, and then all of the kids are just so different. And you really don't know what you're in for until you're in the session. So definitely, like, I enjoyed it so much, and they were definitely a great experience. But for sure, like, it was like a whole like roller coaster ride where I had a child who didn't speak to a child who asked so many questions.
I like your reference of the roller coaster ride. I had a similar experience. So my first two sessions I did, I had a 6-year-old, and he happens to be someone I know. So I was like, it's gonna be okay. It's not gonna be too like awkward. It was awkward. The first session, it started off like really, really quiet. And I was in my head a lot as to like what I needed to say. And I felt like I was counting every 10 seconds in my head. Okay, come on, Deja, say something, say something. And so I felt like I was missing out on a lot of stuff he was doing because I wanted to just react and like say something instead of just sitting back and like observing him. Um, my second session, it was a lot smoother than the first session. He definitely got more comfortable in the second session with me, as he started to talk more, and it was easier for me to implement the skills that we learned in the class. So that was a positive. Micro practicum, it was very, very, it was a learning moment for me. I had a child that he was younger than my initial child that I had. So instead of being more like instead of him like knowing how to express himself, he didn't really know how to like use his words. And when he would use his words, I would have to like tune into his voice because he was not like clear. So that was a slight like challenge for me, but I feel like in the moment I was just trying to like reflect him and like his feelings, and it was easier for me to like just relax because I was like, okay, I have 2 sessions under my belt, I know what I'm doing. Just put all those feelings behind me and just focus on the child. So I definitely felt more confident as the session went on, and I feel like in the future as I engage with more play therapy sessions, my confidence will become better and better and better.
I agree. I agree. Definitely self-confidence will only grow through practice. So I definitely agree.
Well, for my experiences with that, um, it was really you can't predict anything that's going to happen. As as I don't even know how to explain it. As well prepared as we come in, that's completely great. But still, we never know exactly what to expect when we're walking in with children or clients, especially when they're trying to just play. You never know exactly what to experience. My experiences with my first two practice play sessions, it was very interesting. It was with um a female child, and uh she was very self-expressive. She loved playing in the creative toy section. Especially when her favorite thing she disclosed to me was that she wanted to draw. Um, so I felt more relaxed doing those practice sessions. When it came to actually doing the micro practicum, that was a completely different story because now I had a male child um, who had been there all day, and I was the last one to interact with him for a play session. And he still did very good. You could tell he was a little tired at the end of the day, but he still uh, he still did a very good job with wanting to do what he did. At one point, he actually kind of scared me. Um, a lot of times when children have their back turned to you while they're playing, um, they do that so that way they can just kind of focus on themselves and do whatever they're doing. I tried to take a little bit too close of a peek, and he turned his head so sharp that he scared me, and I kind of just sat back down in my place. But the feedback I got from my peer members and from the counselor that was monitoring me, um, I felt pretty good about it. It felt even better that the person observing me was actually a play therapist. So I felt pretty good about that. Would I do this again? Hands down, yes. I just learned to never go in and anticipate what to expect, or just go in with your best intentions, and you will just go with best intentions, do your very best, and you can take care of this.
I definitely feel similar to all of you. I know for my first experience, for my first session I did with my child, he was a 5-year-old. He was very quiet, like, and like to himself. It's almost as if he didn't want to kind of trust me at first. He was, like, oh, who's this stranger? Who's this person like with me right now? But he was playing. He was like, he was really fixed on like the creative part as well. He really liked playing with like, the pipe cleaners and like coloring and playing with like glitter glue and all that. But in the first session, he probably just said like about like 3 things, but only one of them was directed towards me. The rest, he was kind of just talking with himself. He just seemed like a little shy, but he wasn't shy to play. He was kind of just shy. Like when he would see I was looking at him, he kind of like turned away. And I wasn't surprised because it's a new experience for a child, like they're just doing something different. They don't very know this person very well. But for the second session, he talked a bit more, which even though he doesn't need to talk, as it was said, like children don't need to speak in this kind of play therapy. It's just they just play. But it felt really nice and like reassuring that he was like talking. He wasn't so nervous around me. And he would try to include me in what he was doing by showing me everything, although he didn't want me to play with them yet. He was a lot more like talkative and explorative and just like trying out different things from the first session. And I felt like this was kind of like how most sessions would go. Like, they're shy at first, but then they work up to trust you and like show you more of their side. But going into the micro practicum experience, I kind of experienced the opposite. The child was also 6 years old, like Sandy's child. And I thought they would be a little like, shy, but like want to play. But this kid like full on just was comfortable right away. And it was nice, but then also I was a little nervous for me. I was a little nervous just because I didn't know what to do for some moments because I didn't expect this. But I felt like I did very good, like, the best I could to like, go along with him. But I was kind of like Deja in my head a little bit, like, oh, like, what should I say here? Like, it's been more than 10 seconds. What should I say? But he asked a lot of questions compared to like the other child. And he felt like very comfortable to like, play like the way he wanted to. Like he, even though he didn't want to like break anything, he felt like he didn't really set a limit to how he used the toys. He really wanted to play them the best, like the most he could, like to like the most that the toys could like last. Like even though he didn't break anything, he wanted to play with them like as much as he could. And at the end, and it went by very fast, and he even noticed that because when I told him it was like, the end, he was kind of surprised, like, what, like, time's up already. So it felt like really nice knowing like he at least enjoyed being in this session. But I would definitely do this again. It was a really fun experience, and it's just another side of something I didn't know I would have liked, if you asked me before, I would never have known I would have liked something like this.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like initially I was like, I don't really know how it's gonna really work, but now that I have the knowledge and the experience hands-on on how to facilitate a play session, I'm really optimistic about it in the future. So and there's a quick little recap of our session today of our episode 1 of our podcast. Some key topics that we talked about were what essentially is child-centered play therapy, the definition of it, and how we are able to really see this through children, how there's basically their symbolic language and how they are able to use play as their self-expression. We went into some key important details about how this is important knowledge for parents, educators, and administrators to be aware of when talking about child-centered play therapy, as this is a cognitive way for children to process their feelings or even transfer ideas into their real life, and also sharing our personal experiences. So like, why do we really want to pursue school counseling, and how we are able to, how we thought about the course and what we think about it now, and looking into the future and how we can build our self-confidence as we look forward to future play sessions with our future clients. So see you, we hope to see you, or not see you, but hear you listening into next week to delve into more information about child-centered play therapy.